There's something special about ACTFL. There's the energy, the connections, and that spark that comes from being in a space that's filled with teachers who care deeply about their students, language, culture, and each other. So whether you're listening to reflect on your own conference experience, or you shared your own voice in this episode, or maybe you weren't there but you'd like a window into what it felt like to be a part of that incredible community, any of those reasons, stick around because this episode is for you. And I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Clet World Languages. They invited me to set up a podcast table at their booth in the ACTFL exhibit hall, and without that collaboration, none of these conversations would have happened. It truly opened the door to gathering these voices, these reflections, and this sense of community that you're about to hear. So, welcome to ACTFL. Let's jump in. Whether you're planning your first lesson or celebrating your 20th year in the language classroom, I understand exactly where you are. I'm Joshua Cabral, and I'm also a language teacher in my 29th year of teaching. Now, I also have the opportunity to support schools and teachers all across the country who are working towards increasing proficiency and building confidence in their students. This is the World Language Classroom Podcast, with over 200 episodes of practical strategies tested in real classrooms just like yours and mine. So let's jump in. Vamos, allons-y. Hello, my friends. Bonjour, mes amis. Hola, mis amigos. Welcome to the World Language Classroom Podcast. I am Joshua Cabral, and thank you, as always, for listening to a podcast about language teaching, and specifically this podcast about language teaching. It's one of the many things that I know that you do to go that extra step, to go even further and look at your teaching, and so I have so much respect for you for doing that. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and talking about language teaching. And today, we're going to talk about ACTFL. So whether you were actually at ACTFL, and this is an opportunity to reflect on your own experience, or maybe you're listening because your voice is going to be on this episode because you're going to hear from so many teachers about their takeaways and what they're learning while they're at ACTFL. Or if you weren't able to be there, you can get some insight into the learning that was happening and the types of collaborations so that you can virtually be a part of that experience and maybe even entice you to go in the future if you have that opportunity. So I had the chance to connect with so many listeners while I was there. So many of you came to the Clet World Languages booth to meet in person, and I love making that connection. I love to know where you teach, what you teach, and I love when you take out your phone and you show me, yes, you listen to the podcast. It's so reassuring and motivating, and I appreciate that so much. Then there was that group that stopped me in the lobby of my hotel. There was that group of teachers from Alabama, and they were excited to meet. And then in the airport, there were 3 of you from New York who all came up to me and said, hey, it's great to see you. And then even on my flight from Charlotte to Boston, I'm sitting there and somebody comes walking down the aisle, and she was from New York, and she said, I listened to your podcast as well. So great to see you. But I just love the energy of meeting all of you in person and hearing your takeaways about the podcast. So thank you so much. There is nothing more motivating than that. And one listener told me that she had recently had an accident and had to be doing some physical therapy, and it was pretty long hours of that, and that it helped her to pass the time. She was listening to the podcast episodes from the beginning, and it really helped her to go through that entire experience. Thank you for taking the time to reach out, whether that's virtually or in person. There is nothing more encouraging and motivating for doing this podcast than connecting directly with you. So now let's get into ACTFL 2025 in New Orleans, Louisiana. So let's start with the ACTFL Teacher of the Year. So we're going to start with one of the most exciting moments of the ACTFL weekend, and that's the announcement of the Teacher of the Year. There's a buzz around it every year, and this time I had the chance to hear directly from someone who was close to the action, and that is Nathan Campbell, the newly announced ACTFL 2026 Language Teacher of the Year.
My name is Nathan Campbell. I'm a Spanish language teacher at Manheim Central High School in Manheim, Pennsylvania. And this year's ACTFL experience has been really the experience of a lifetime. Everything that I've worked with my students to do, build with my colleagues, has come to fruition at this point. 2 days ago, I was honored with ACTFL Language Teacher of the Year. So my experience here has been very different than in the past. I've had the opportunity to meet people from all over different languages, leaders, people making moves and shakes with the world language community. And I really look forward to traveling around the country this year, meeting people as I travel, representing everybody and advocating us down in Washington, D.C. So this will be an incredible year.
Nathan's excitement is truly contagious, and I'm so looking forward to everything he's going to continue to contribute to our profession over the next year. Now, that feeling of being lifted up by the profession is something we see all weekend long. And as we move through the conference, and if you've had this own experience yourself, one of the biggest challenges is simply navigating all the possibilities available. And that leads us to the next part of our conversation. So ACTFL can be overwhelming in the best possible way. There are thousands of teachers, endless sessions, many events and meetups. So now we're going to hear from Lisa, who talks about slowing down and giving herself the space to make meaningful connections. And then from Jeremy, who shares a more targeted approach, walking in with a goal and choosing sessions intentionally. So let's hear how they reflect on their approach to a conference this big.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bartles. I'm a National Board Certified teacher in French, and I teach French and Spanish in a middle school in Wake County, North Carolina. And this is my second ACTFL conference. Last year at ACTFL, I filled up every minute of my schedule going to sessions, and I learned a lot, but it was overwhelming and it was exhausting. And this ACTFL has been a lot more enjoyable because I've just given myself permission to take time to not fill every second with activity and just to walk around and talk to people and get to know people. So those connections have been really valuable.
So my name is Jeremy. I'm from the Chicago area. I teach at St. Lawrence High School. Shout out to my St. Lawrence people. One of the biggest things I loved about ACTFL is I came with a goal. I want to build a class library. I want to implement free voluntary reading, get the kids reading more, because that's the biggest way, I think, to help improve fluency. Also with speaking, talking about those. So one thing I've been trying to do is, see what I can get for my class library, see how I'm able to implement reading a lot more in my classroom.
Hearing teachers talk about pacing and purpose is such a good reminder that we don't have to do everything. And when we do choose intentionally, we often come away with ideas that we can start to use right away. And that brings us to our next segment, which is all about teaching ideas. Now, one of the most exciting things about ACTFL is walking away with strategies that make your classroom more joyful and effective. Now, Julie shares how she makes vocabulary learning fun through CI-based approaches. And then Martha talks about bringing resources like Señor Woolley and connections with the Embassy of Spain into her teaching. Let's hear from teachers who are so interested in trading strategies and getting excited about their teaching.
Hola, bonjour. This is Julie Mar de Leon from Puerto Rico, and I teach in Newnan, Georgia. And I presented yesterday the best of schools. And my presentation was about making a fun engagement activities in the world language classroom. And I want teachers to boost the energy and create building communities within the classrooms using comprehensive input, teaching vocabulary, and make it fun so the student can be able to follow through the topics that we approach and expose to them. So I'm a person that I've been teaching for 21 years, and I wanted to stay away from the grammar a little bit and teach more the input so the student can understand the language and use it while they're learning the grammar and making them more fun. Doesn't matter the age.
Hola, my name is Martha Starrett. I am a teacher at the GUS, which is a school that is called Glen Urquhart School in Beverly, Massachusetts. I went to the workshop of Mr. Woolley, Señor Woolley. A lot of good ideas and interactions. And also I have met people from the Embassy from Spain, which was actually very thrilling and very interesting.
These are the ideas we take home and use immediately. But ACTFL also pushes us to think deeply about representation and whose voices we choose to celebrate. So let's turn to that topic. Representation is such an important part of language teaching, and it came up again and again in conversations that I had with teachers. So in this segment, you're going to hear from Carmen, who reminds us to honor Indigenous cultures and voices that are often missing from our curriculum. And then from Ben, who will speak about supporting LGBTQ plus students and colleagues by centering dignity and worth. And then we'll hear from Tracy, who will share his work around belonging, diversity, and inclusion in the French classroom. These reflections highlight why representation is not optional, it's essential.
Hi, my name is Carmen Gonzalez, and I teach Spanish at Darlington School in Rome, Georgia. And I teach Spanish 3, AP, and post-AP cinema. So this morning I was very fortunate to attend this workshop called Bringing Indigenous and Afro-Indigenous Cultures into the World Language Classroom. And my takeaway was that as Spanish teachers, we have this great opportunity to bring the forgotten voices and forgotten histories into our classrooms. And there are so many ways to do it, and we should be looking out for this curiosity in us to learn more about this topic and also get the students interested and more knowledgeable about such an important topic.
My name is Ben Fisher-Rodriguez. I teach German in the Seattle area. I am presenting an ACTFL sidebar about supporting LGBTQ plus students and colleagues. I think the important thing for us to remember at this time of political strife about identities that are themselves not controversial is that we have to center the dignity and the worth of all the people we are talking about. Every one of your students is worthy of dignity and respect for who they are. So do your best to listen to your students, care for them, and defend them with whatever privileges that you have.
Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Rucker, French teacher from Louisville, Kentucky, and it is a pleasure to be here to share ideas and to reconnect at ACTFL 2025. Today I presented a topic that I am super passionate about entitled Belonging, Diversity, and Inclusion in the French Classroom, and I shared ideas with at least 75 participants, and it was exciting, and I look forward to reconnecting with those who are here to learn and to continue to learn and promote world languages. So thank you for this opportunity.
Hearing teachers talk so intentionally about representation is inspiring, and this work begins early, especially in elementary programs. So let's hit into that space now. Elementary language programs are where students start forming their earliest impressions of language learning. So in this segment, we're going to hear from Jessica, who shares how she uses images to support comprehension and engagement with young learners. And then from Carmen, who brings social-emotional learning and the sustainable development goals into her classroom using resources like Alban Gael into her teaching. These are some of the richest conversations I had with teachers, and they highlight the thoughtful work happening in elementary classrooms.
Hello, my name is Jessica Ramirez. I teach Spanish 1 and Spanish for fluent speakers to 8th grade students at Virginia. The conference that I liked the most yesterday was the one in which it was called Strategies to Inspire and Transform Elementary Language Lessons with Rocio Jacoby and Michelle Whaley. For me, it was very impactful the way they showed us how to exploit images and pictures and give students a sequence of activities in which they could think more than describe. And it was elementary. They provided examples of their teaching practice, and I really loved it. They used a lot of modeling, visuals with us. I think it's Michelle, the one that was teaching us Ukrainian. I have no idea how to speak. I don't know how to speak Ukrainian, but she made it so comprehensible. And that's the approach that I'm really using in my class and I'm trying to get better at. So this was an excellent, excellent conference.
Hello, my name is Carmen Reyes. I am a Spanish teacher who teaches 6th and 8th grade. I am World Language Department Chair at the Langley School in Virginia. And I'm very excited to be here at CLED World Languages booth. Today, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my experience at ACTFL. I presented, I share about social emotional learning, how to connect this topic with our curricular units, because I feel like it is important that our students feel connected, represented, and mirror themselves in our lessons. After that, I had another session about sustainable development goals and how this connects also with our curriculum. I share a game and a project, and I enjoy seeing colleagues acting and putting these strategies in practice, see them, how they feel, and how our students would feel when they do that. I feel like the message was to understand how our actions have consequences that impact our planet, and what actions are important to encourage our students to practice. And after that, I had another mini session here at the CLUD World Language booth, where I share about this program, Alba y Gael Inicial. I am author of the program, so I felt very excited to be able to share the importance of all the resources that it contains, the textbook, workbook, and platform that can support teachers in lower elementary school.
Elementary teachers remind us of the power of early exposure and the importance of building engaging, meaningful experiences from day one. And one of the most powerful parts of ACTFL is the opportunity to connect with colleagues, with friends, mentors, and people we've only known maybe online. So let's move to those voices next. Now, ACTFL is a conference, but it's also a reunion. It's a chance to reconnect with colleagues, meet people we've heard from, and form new relationships. And in this section, you're going to hear from Kristen, who talks about her conference family, and then from Katie, who is really reflecting on the collaboration that she experiences at ACTFL. Then we'll hear from Kate, who shares how energizing it is to be around passionate educators, plus some thoughts on AI tools. And then from Amy, who describes what it meant to meet teachers from around the world and finally connect with presenters who have shaped her teaching. So let's hear how teachers find each other, reconnect, and build community at ACTFL.
My name is Kristen Archambault, and I teach middle school French and ESL in Storrs, Connecticut. And I am president of RIFLA, which is the Rhode Island for Language Association. I've lost count of to how many ACTFL conferences I've come to, maybe 6 or 7. I'm lucky enough that it's often close to where I live in Boston. And one of the best things I like about coming to this conference is seeing and reuniting with my conference family. I have this whole little group of people that I only see when I come to ACTFL, and it's really great to see them and hear from them and learn from them.
Hi, my name is Katie Wild. I teach in Baltimore, Maryland, and I teach Spanish 1 and 2. And my big takeaway from this weekend is the idea of not reinventing the wheel and the collaboration and connections we make with other educators at ACTFL.
Bonjour, I am Kate Rice. I am the first year French coordinator at the University of Denver in Denver, Colorado. This is actually my first time at ACTFL. I'm so grateful to have a university that supports PD in language, and I'm thrilled to be here because being around other language educators is inspiring. It's energizing. We've just completed our quarter, which is a 10-week marathon, but at a sprint pace. And it's great to be here and be re-energized as we start planning for winter quarter and thinking about all the new ideas I can bring in, ways I could bring in AI, which makes me a little nervous, but I'm working on it. So looking for ways to connect and be inspired, and that's what ACTFL is to me.
Hi, so I'm Amy Morrison, and I have spent the last 19 years as a French classroom teacher in Los Angeles Unified in California. And this is my 4th ACTFL, and I've been a presenter at 3 of them. But the best part has really been meeting teachers from around the country and around the world where, as a French teacher, I've lived in isolation a lot. And so being able to connect with them and best practices, or finding some of those presenters who changed my life on how to integrate AI or how to step up my interpersonal communication and culture and context, because I was a grammar-based verb chart, kill and drill teacher for a long time. And when the standards changed and practices changed, becoming well-versed in those best practices and how to implement with small changes in my own classroom was really amazing. And just finding those presenters again, because I know it's going to be a rock star session. I'm going to learn a lot of things and be able to take it back to my colleagues in my department who aren't able to come here. It's been really, really life-changing.
These stories capture exactly what makes ACTFL feel so special. And this final group brings us to the emotional core of the weekend, which is inspiration. ACTFL has a way of lighting us up. In this final segment, we'll hear from Cécile, who reflects on reigniting her flame as a teacher, and then from Jose, who talks about the openness, the positivity, and the good vibe that ACTFL brings. And then finally, we'll hear from Krista, who is attending her first ACTFL from the UK, and she describes the joy in finding her tribe.
Hello, my name is Dr. Cécile Nedelec. I teach French at Patrick Henry High School in the San Diego Unified School District. I teach all levels of French from first year to AP. I'm also a coordinator for CELIN, the Southern Area International Languages Network at SDSU LARC. And I'm a UCSD instructor and mentor for students, teachers who are getting their credentialed cleared. And I'm also a huge supporter of CLT and CWLP, which I really highly recommend everyone to do that. My biggest takeaway, the reason why I really wanted to come to ACTFL was to get my flame back up, to get inspired with all the presentations, all the beautiful minds that are present here at the conference, get new ideas to modify what I do in the classroom, to engage my students, to get them inspired as well, also with the hat of a workshop presenters, so that I can get other teachers uplifted like I'm feeling uplifted right now.
Hey folks, how are you? My name is Jose Laruso. I'm a Spanish and Italian teacher. I work in the Hamlin School in San Francisco, California, and I have been teaching at least for the last 21 years. And number one, I'm super excited to be here, and I think the ACTFL not only offers, I will say, one of the widest and biggest windows in terms of knowledge for teachers, but also you breathe a good vibe. It's pretty amazing the fact that you know and you feel that you are surrounded by teachers, and the main two things that I love the most is that with teachers we don't have ego, and number two, we're always open to share our materials, knowledge, things, links, and it's a powerful energy that offer us new knowledge, and the most important thing, like restart when we are back to the classroom, which is a main platform for all of us, is to share with the students and to make sure that they learn new things and cool things at the same time.
Hi there, my name's Krista Hazel, and I've come from Bristol, which is not too far away from London in the UK, and this is my first ACTFL experience, and it is such an incredible pleasure to be here. I'm totally overwhelmed by the thousands of passionate, kind-hearted, open-hearted teachers here, and it's just so exciting. What an amazing conference. I'm so thrilled to be a member of ACTFL from afar, but to be in sessions, that opening session, I was stood at the back almost holding the wall. I've never seen so many teachers in one space, so many positive teachers, I should say, and like my tribe, language teachers. I teach French, German, Spanish and Russian at high school, and I've taught in primary school, so elementary. I now teach teachers, and it's a privilege to work with schools where values align. So I train teachers who are perhaps fresh out of university or perhaps want to work our career changes. So one of my trainees at the minute is a fireman from Chile who's decided he wants to use his home language, the language he's raised his children for, to become a Spanish teacher in the UK. And it's amazing. It's amazing to be here around so many passionate. I can't wait to take this experience back to them. It's going to be amazing. It'll blow their minds.
These reflections really bring everything full circle. ACTFL fills us up, and capturing these voices would not have been possible without the collaboration of CLET World Languages, who welcomed me into their booth and gave me the opportunity to record these conversations throughout the weekend. So thank you so much for listening to this special ACTFL episode of the World Language Classroom podcast. Whether you were at the conference, contributed your voice in person, or are listening from home this year, I hope this episode gave you a meaningful look into the experience. And thank you for all that you do on a daily basis to support and motivate your students. I hope you're feeling inspired and motivated from these voices. I very much appreciate and enjoy supporting you and your language teacher colleagues as you bring effective, proficiency-focused strategies into your classroom. As a reminder, I provide on-site workshops, live virtual sessions, self-paced departmental PD, and my new Ready for Tomorrow Quick Win courses for individual teachers just like you. You can find all the links in the show notes or on my website, wlclassroom.com. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And let's stay connected on social media. You can find me at WL Classroom pretty much everywhere. You'll also find lots of ideas, suggestions, and resources on my website, wlclassroom.com. Now stay curious, keep learning, and continue the great work you do inspiring and supporting your students.